Hello, this is Cindy Mazzaferro with Powerful Beyond Measure, and I'm so excited today to bring you a fabulous author, multiple authored books. He's internationally known as a business guru and expert, and today we're going to be talking about his new book, Nonprofit Legends, which has just been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize Award. Can you believe that? I'm so honored to have him here today. He is the highest level of business overview expert and is in the circle of experts such as Peter Drucker, Tom Peters, Stephen Covey, Peter Senge, and W. Edwards Deming. Drucker termed Hank's More business tree as the most original business model of the past 50 years. Hank Moore advises companies about growth strategies, visioning, planning, and the big picture issues which profoundly affect the business climate. He has presented think tanks for 5 U.S. presidents and has spoken at 7 economic summits. So please welcome a dear friend and a world's true business legends expert, Hank Moore. How are you, Hank?
I'm delighted to be chatting with you.
Me too, and congratulations on what a fabulous nomination for the Pulitzer Prize. Oh my goodness.
Well, you don't do things like that for the awards. If recognition comes, it's good, but this represented more than 50 years of volunteering, about 100,000 pro bono hours.
I believe it. I've got the pleasure of meeting you socially at an event, and I was just overwhelmed by the knowledge and the exposure and all the fabulous people that you've met over your lifetime. And you really are like an encyclopedia with multiple connections to so many rich and famous and really influential people. So congratulations on all your work and passion over your years.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was an honor to experience all those years.
Oh, I bet. So tell us, you've written now how many books? 4 books? Or 5 books?
10.
10.
10.
Wow.
Yes, I'm actually working on number 11 right now, which is called Pop Music Legends. The one we're talking about here is my 9th book, Nonprofit Legends, which reflected a lot of years of charity and volunteer work, which was my honor to do. And I felt as the years went by, it was an obligation to write a textbook about it, because a lot of people volunteer for the right reasons, but no one lays out a strategy of how to do it most effectively. We do that in business books all the time, but I did it this time in the nonprofit realm.
I think that's a fabulous tribute to the community and to really the country, because we do need to have philanthropic and charitable opportunities to present. And this is a great book that really shares kind of like a template as to how to do that and the best ways to do it. So what should people set as their volunteer and community involvement goals? What do you recommend?
Well, they ought to do causes that appeal to them, not that look good to other people. They ought to choose causes that can affect the most number of people. One of the chapters in the book is where I take 7 different levels of nonprofit and charitable causes. And what you need to not focus on is those category 1 and 2 startup nonprofits. A lot of them aren't going to be around a long time. A lot of them aren't supposed to be around for a long time. So you want to benefit causes that benefit the most number of people. And I also recommend people change and update their nonprofit activities every year. Spread your time around. Spread your wealth around. Don't just give to the same cause forever. Let other people give to that cause, and then you champion some other ones that need the wings to fly.
That's a really great point, because I think we do get stuck. And just like when you look at your financial portfolio, over time, we're supposed to change how much bonds, how much, this and that, and different proportions, if you will. So the same thing with the charities is not getting stuck. And I think we very easily could do that. We become so passionate and just figuring we've been there for a long time, why not stay? So do you find that certain charities, though, are top heavy? They tend to give 30% to upper management or the organizational structure, 70% only goes to the charity. What framework or ratio do you feel is appropriate within a nonprofit?
The best ratio should be no less than 10% is
Okay.
spent on administrative costs. And some of the really big ones, such as United Way of America, which I had the pleasure of reorganizing back in the early 90s after a top-heavy management scandal, they make sure that the bulk of the money really goes to the causes. And yes, there are other organizations where too much is spent. The other on administrative costs and sumptuous offices and whatnot. The other thing that I think people need to look at is how much of the money goes to causes in your area, your market. There are certain causes that raise an awful lot of money in certain markets, and then pennies on the dollar only make it back. And that's not
Okay. Now, is there a difference between a business getting involved in a charity versus a person, an individual getting involved in a nonprofit?
well, every person and every business need to have a strategy that they come up with at the beginning of the year, follow through during the year, and then examine at the end of the year. None of us are in business to give all of our resources away, whether we're individuals or companies. But when we do give it away on those occasions, we want to make it count. We want to be remembered. And yes, once in a while we want to be recognized, but that's not the reason either. One of the terms that I use in my book is called potlash. It means I give you a gift, and the warm smile that you give me back is my gift. And that's the charitable
Right.
example. We serve other people, and in doing so, they serve us in ways we can't even predict.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And for most people that maybe they don't realize, but a nonprofit organization is a 501c3. Are there other ones that also allows you to have tax benefits if you do make a taxable deduction?
Yes. In one of the chapters in the book, I talk about how the Internal Revenue Code of 1913 created the 501 status. And prior to that, most of the nonprofit work was being done by churches, which are also 501 organizations, schools, which are also now they all got lumped into a tax-exempt status.
Mm-hmm.
501c3, which most people know, is your basic charity. But then you get into 501c6, that would include schools, educational organizations, foundations, literacy, umbrella organizations, things of an educational nature. And there's all kinds of 501 organizations, religious institutions, arts groups, so many others. So 501c3 is just one small sliver of the tax-exempt nonprofit. Put it all together, and there's probably 30 different categories of nonprofit organizations. 501c3 is but one.
I got you. Well, that's good to know, because that way, like you said, you can find what you're interested in, what's aligned with your passion, your desires to help, and that way you can find that match. If it's education, if it's arts, so I think that's a great way to really fine tune what you're going to donate to, but to make sure that it is a credible organization is probably very essential. Would you agree?
Right. One of the things that I'm a little leery of that's going on right now are all these online fundraising activities. A lot of them are created by platforms that are trying to raise money for themselves.
Right.
And if more than half of the money ever gets to the charities, I'd be very surprised.
Well, and they're not charities. Often it might be raising money for someone who has a health issue, or they need a new car, or there's,
right,
the fire, the house burned down, or something like that.
And with due respect to those kind of people, as I said, give to causes that affect many. That person whose house had the fire might be a veteran. Give instead to veterans organizations, earmarking it for veterans who were displaced by hurricanes and storms and wildfires.
Right. I was watching a television show the other day on Puerto Rico, and how they're still so devastated with the hurricane. The whole island was really disseminated, and how they're really, even though there's so much funds and resources are going in, it's still so undeveloped. It's still not restored, and they're saying
Right.
half of the island might not get electricity till July. So there are such great needs for us to be philanthropic and to donate, and we need to find the right organizations that really
Right.
can reach the most, like you said.
And going back to those businesses you were asking about, that's what we call cause-related marketing. There's a chapter on that in there too. And it's basically to show businesses, there are some businesses out there who, yes, did try to capitalize on the hurricanes and storms and wildfires and earthquakes, so on and so forth. There's always going to be those, but they are the minority of companies. Most good companies want to get involved. They don't know how. So they need to go work with their local United Way or Better Business Bureau or different organizations who will channel them where their limited dollars can do the most. But it's about more than just dollars. The main thing is it's volunteer hours. That's the best cause that you and I, our time, which is so limited. As I say, I just bragged about the fact that I gave 100,000 hours away over a 60-year period. There were some years that I was doing up to 2,000 hours per year. That's a little too much. When I just said minutes ago, none of us are in business to give it away. I got so absorbed and involved in certain years for certain reasons, for certain causes. At one time I had to do some work, with the Anti-Defamation League and literacy organizations and ethics organizations. And I was doing things that got me involved in more things, which got me involved in more things. I probably overdid it too. And there were years that it took a toll on financial income. There was, I remember a couple of years there, I wasn't billing any money because I was serving the greater good. Fortunately, I'd made enough money in previous years that I could serve the greater good. Not everyone can afford to do that.
And I love that you brought up that volunteer hours is another way for you to donate to charities. And it doesn't only have to be the monetary. It can be serving on a board as well, using your intelligence, your expertise.
That's the best thing you can do is serve on a board. Every board needs to be balanced and mixed. There's 3 kinds of board members that serve with nonprofits. By the way, there are 2.3 million nonprofit organizations in the United States currently. That's a lot. And they're all competing for the same money and time and attention. And, so it's really important to, pick and choose your causes. And the average person out there in the public, 1/3 to 1/2 of the population volunteers. And the average person volunteers more than 150 hours a year. Some of us overdid it some years, but it's not a contest who can give the most time or money or who can get the most recognition for it. But you want to just know that your life made a difference.
Right.
And we feel that way in business as well as in charity. Same thing with business. We have to very carefully align who we associate with, the kinds of organizations we endorse and support. That's what some of my other books are about. But half of my books are business books, and the other half are what I call legends books, where we honor and recognize pop culture, the greater human good, history, and a lot of fun stuff too. One of the other things about charitable involvement, and that's the last thing I'll say on that subject, is you meet some of the nicest, most fun people. You go to some of the best special events, assuming that most of the money goes to the charity rather than putting on the event. But and that's how I met an awful lot of celebrities, was through charitable involvement. That's how I met Winston Churchill, Audrey Hepburn, Roger Moore. Vincent Price. Just on and on. Lucille Ball, Bob Hope. It just goes on and on and on. And I met most of them through charitable involvement. Some of them later became clients.
Wow.
That's a good thing. Walt Disney, good example. So it's just you do what you do for charity, and if you make contacts with some fabulous people, it's a given that's going to happen. If you get business out of it, you don't do it to get business, but often it happens.
That's beautiful. So can you tell us, and you name dropped a lot there, which I love because it kind of entices the viewer here watching our video to check out all your books. I mean, they're fabulous. You can check them on all line sites, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and go to any bookstore, and they'll be able to resource and access all of the books and order them for you. But you're going to see that Hank here has such a wealth of knowledge. It really is amazing that he can keep it all in his head. And he can tell you dates and times and locations, and it's so impressive. But I'd like to ask a little bit of kind of a teaser. What's one or two situations that you found yourself in that really have been a remarkable memory that you will never, I know you have so many, but give us one or two that really stand out to this day as being one of your benchmarks that is so. Did you ever meet the Queen of England?
No, but I met several people that were knighted. Including Paul McCartney and Mick Jagger, but no, the best opportunities are where someone was in trouble and they put their ego aside and asked for help. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I was doing a speech. I speak normally when I speak at corporate conferences, I'm the opening keynote speaker, the National Association of whatever. And this one, I was speaking at a corporate leadership retreat. It was in New Orleans, and it was for a group called American Society of Industrial Security. And one of the members of the audience, there were about 100 people there, came up to me and he said, "Hi, I'm with Coors Beer, and I'm in Golden, Colorado. And you may have heard about those shootings that were just held at a high school called Columbine, right down the street from our brewery. Oh. And we'd like to bring you to help reorganize the community." And I said, "Well, that's great." I said, "Number one, you understand that you going into a school district in a community, that would look a little too Joe Camel for a brewing company to be the only corporate sponsor. Why don't you get about 10 others and do it as a community-wide campaign?" And so then I went up there, and one of the first questions I asked out of my mouth to the city council members up in Littleton, I said, "By the way, where's your economic development plan?" And they said, "My God, man, children were just killed in our school. Have you no heart?" I said, "Yes, I have a lot of heart. Where's your economic development program? Does your community want to be a sad, pathetic footnote in history, or do you want to be seen as a phoenix rising from the ashes? And you do it by becoming a robust community where the right hand and the left hand know each other." So they let me talk them through how to do it. We call that visioning. We then put on a town hall meeting in the school gym where children had been killed earlier, and the X's marking their spots were on the floor. And you could have seen the warmth and sharing, and as I call it, potlash of everybody giving and sharing to each other was just unbelievable. And they still do it once a year up there.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I just said, call it a community town hall meeting. Don't call it a corporate annual meeting. Keep staying in touch. Keep involving the other people, and they listen. And the other examples that I had with nonprofit organizations that were at a crossroads, and that included the Anti-Defamation League of America, United Way, some of the literacy programs, some of the Latchkey Children program. I remember one time over the phone thinking up a teen pregnancy program to reduce repeat pregnancies, and it became something that Black universities championed. I just kind of thought it up on the phone, but what I do is after the conversation is over, they're your ideas. They're not my ideas. I just help people brainstorm what's in their head, but they don't quite know how to think of it. So you give them the ideas. And I think that Littleton example is one I'll never forget the rest of my life. And there were others. You know, sometimes they were ones that weren't in the headlines, they weren't famous. But, you know, I remember many times telling nonprofit organizations to merge together so they could be more effective, they could be a greater voice. It's all those little meetings and lunches and behind the scene things where they took the advice and then it became their ideas.
And it can have a profound effect, whether it's a small or larger impact, you know.
And it's the same thing with businesses. A lot of businesses, once they lay down the gauntlet and think maybe we do need to change course,
Yes.
and maybe it's time to rethink top to bottom. That's what my next book is about.
And we do. There's that cultural shift. And, you know, because our community, our culture in the society is changing. So our business culture also needs to change and evolve as time goes on as well.
Right. I often believe that if nonprofit organizations would be a little more business-like, they'd have more lasting power. If corporations and small businesses would be a little more nonprofit-esque and have that heart and soul and that connection to their holders, they would be more successful long-term. So somewhere in the middle is a happy merging that often happens with both businesses and nonprofits.
Exactly. I love the way you just said that. That was really well. So your book is actually written not just for the nonprofit organization, it's also written for lay people, how they can participate in nonprofit. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Those 2.3 million people out there are organizations that have communities in their own communities. One of the chapters that I'm especially, well, I mean, every nonprofit puts on special events, but a lot of them do it very haphazardly. There's a chapter on that. I did a lot of research over my years of volunteering and advising groups, and I found only a handful of books out there had anything to do with nonprofit. And one of them was written by my friend Peter Drucker. He talked about running a nonprofit organization more like a business. What he didn't talk about was the potlatch, the heart and soul matters, how to get more media coverage, how to put on special events, all that good stuff. And that's why I did it. And, most of us who write multiple books, our books are like our children. We do it for reasons other than money. There are a lot of reasons. And one of them is pride, sharing, and creating a body of knowledge that just didn't exist anywhere else. So I learned that the only books that were out there had to do with fundraising. And occasionally there might be something on volunteer recruitment and retention. But all the other stuff, ethics and strategic planning for nonprofits and putting on special events and how to do PR and marketing for nonprofits, none of that was ever covered. So I had to do it. And frankly, our books are like our children. They all stand out for one reason, but usually there's one that really stands out. And of the 10 I've done, that's the one. Nonprofit Legends.
That's great. Now, when will you hear if you've actually been selected for the Pulitzer Prize?
Next summer. Next summer. The way the Pulitzer Prizes work is they nominate a handful of books. As I understand, there's only 5 or 6 that have bbeen nominated, but they wait until the spring to nominate the journalistic awards. So all these great things being reported or whatever, most of that is chosen at the last minute because of the timeliness of journalism.
Sure.
So the book awards are kind of the back end of it. And I've won, some other awards in my own community. In fact, this is the award. I won a Lifetime Achievement Award a couple of years ago, recognizing those 100,000 pro bono hours. And you don't do the work for the awards. I remember that one of the best awards I ever got, I've been inducted into several halls of fame, and one of them was the United Nations Hall of Fame. The fact that I was standing at the UN General Assembly next to Audrey Hepburn getting a round of applause, that was my award.
That's the award.
Standing next to Audrey Hepburn, my favorite actress, who I not only got to help on a campaign for UNICEF, but I got to direct her last video appearance, which was a series of public service announcements.
That's great.
That was the award, not
Absolutely.
the applause, not the certificate, not the plaque.
Yes, that is so beautiful. Being intimate with those connections in the actual, company is amazing.
Yeah.
So what is the legacy that we leave through community service and volunteerism?
If we don't do it, who's going to?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't do it now, will it ever get done? I think most of us as human beings and in our business career, we want to be in business and have careers to stand for something, to mean for something that we did in ways, you write about it in Powerful Beyond Measure. And, there's a heartfelt reason that nonprofit service brings out the best in us that business careers don't always do. People can do things in the community to augment. Many of my friends who work as accountants and lawyers and in those kinds of jobs will do things in the community that they just can't do in their career work. In my case, I'm doing the exact same thing that I get paid to do in business, which is tell people how to better run their organizations and then come out of the room where it's their ideas. I'm the exception, but the answers to everything in business and community are right in front of our noses. We just need sometimes a guide, a mentor to help us to see what's there. And in business, it tends to be mentors, and in communities, it tends to be collections of people through nonprofits, through homeowner associations, through umbrella charity causes, through collaborations. And that's the other last thing. Nonprofit gets us to work together more often than not. Would that the daily conduct of business did that?
Yeah. And my husband, he's retired. He works for SCORE, which is an organization. Almost every town has it. It's retired professionals that help people completely free, to help them with business plans, restructuring, what's going on, questions, all different things. And it also does tax preparation through AARP, which is from the government. And again, it's free tax preparation. And if you're not familiar with it, if you check your libraries and your senior centers, all of that's available at really every town available. So finding your own niche, your own passion, and using your own talents, there are so many ways out there. And I would like to also add that we're never too young to start to be a volunteer, and that I encourage our families. Habitat for Humanity, they do painting, and they build a house, So there's lots of things that a whole family unit could come in and start to help to teach that type of character and moral building and support to those in needs.
One of the things that I believe, we've got 6 generations in our society right now, more than at any other time in our lifetime. 5 of them, the 5 oldest, the youngest generation Z, most of them are not working in business yet, but they're coming along and they're keeping their eyes and ears open. And in the case of Generation Y, also known as millennials, they are one of the most volunteer conscious generations that we've had in probably 2 or 3 generations. They've got the integrity and the caring and scope of their great-grandparents. Everything goes in cycles. And to assume that older people are the only ones out there who were born and bred to volunteer. I started my career when I was 10 years old, and my first mentor was Lady Bird Johnson, who later became First Lady of the United States. And she sat me down at her kitchen table. I was 10 years old, and I'd begun my career working in her radio station as a disc jockey. And then I went, from there to the White House, same boss. But she pulled me aside and said, "You are a visionary. You are a humanitarian." And then she slyly smiled, "Now grow into the role." That's what we can say to younger people.
I
particularly the
love.
really young people in Generation Z. We can talk to them about the joy and the potlatch of giving back. Generation Y really gets it. And we have an opportunity with the youngest generation is to get them into volunteering big time. Not only does it make you a better human being, not only does it help your community, but it's also good for business. And there's nothing wrong with that either, because businesses and successful individuals that have done well are in a better position to then give their time away in later years.
And all of these things also, and that was so beautifully said, Hank, and I absolutely love that. It allows you to express joy in your life and enjoy in others' lives. And that's really what living's all about, is being happy and expressing joy. And so I encourage everyone to go out and purchase Hank's new book, Legends of the Nonprofit, and look at his other books. There are Nonprofit Legends. I said that in the wrong order.
Yeah.
But it's just, do you have the book right there you can show everyone, Hank?
Yes.
Yes, I love it. See all the hands, all the different causes on the palm hands. I absolutely love.
That's a charitable thing we give together. The previous book, which was a business version of this, was Pop Icons and Business Legends. And there on the book are some of the legends that I knew and worked with, including Steven Spielberg, Bill Gates, Walt Disney, Howard Hughes, Burt Bacharach. And there's one guy on the cover. I mean, I'm old, but I'm not old enough to have known John D. Rockefeller. I would have liked to, because John D. Rockefeller during the Great Depression used to walk up and down the streets in New York City handing out dimes to people, sharing the wealth. That's another thing that I would add.
Beautiful.
The common thread of the really wealthy people, including Disney and Gates and all of them, you ask them, was it ever about the money in your life? And they said no. It was always about the give back.
Touching people's hearts is such a beautiful gift that we each can do in our own special way. So, Hank, why don't you tell us how people can, if they want you for a speaker or to use you as a business consultant, how can they reach you?
My web address is www.hankmoore.com.
Right.
And each of the books has its own website too. And speaking, I work with 50 speakers bureaus all over the country, but the central one would be www.hankmoore.com.
Right, and Moore is MOORE.com.
Yes.
And again, you can find his book through Morgan James Publishing, at least his most recent ones, through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, in any bookstore around the world. You just have to ask for them, they'll order it, and they'll send it your way. So thank you so much. This is a lifetime's work of passion and expertise, and thank you so much for touching so many people's lives, both the companies, the volunteers, and those that are receiving. So thank you so much for your time and your dedication to really touching the world.
You're most welcome, and it's been a great pleasure, and there's a lot more of it yet to do.
Oh my goodness, he's not done. He'll be on 11, 12, 13. How many books do you anticipate doing overall?
Probably 15.
Very good.
Number 10, which maybe we'll talk about next time I'm on Big Picture of Business. Number 11 I'm working on right now is Pop Music Legends. The one after that's going to be another business book called Business Strategies and Legends. And the one after that is Most Memorable Icons and Legends. And that's where I start getting into Hollywood and sports and news figures. So basically every other book's a business book. Every alternate book is what I call Legends book, which is mainly fun reading with little bits of business thrown in.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me and my audience, and I really hope everyone takes the opportunity to check out his book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Check out the reviews. You'll see that it's a book that you'll love, and I wish you much success, and I hope you also are awarded the Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, it was great work to do, and awards are nice.
They always are.
But not
nice to be recognized. Well, thank you again. Have a blessed day. And again, this is Cynthia Mazzaferro with Powerful Beyond Measure. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.